one of the most prominent statements of the French expert Paul Henry. He is one of the 5 people who were on the missing Titan submarine. It's not a bad way to paradox life. That's all there is to it. When something strange happens, all passengers will enter a state of deep sleep because of the extreme cold in the ocean waters. But something can't happen. These were the words when one of the journalists stood up. The valor of what can happen if the submarine gets stuck in the depths of the ocean waters. But what happened next? And the horror and fear that happened to Henry and all the passengers of the submarine. And the sad end of the trip. It was far from a bad way to paradoxize life. The launch of the Titan submarine took place on Sunday, June 18, 2023. In the waters of the Atlantic Ocean at a distance of 700 kilometers. From the Canadian island of Newfoundland. The goal of the flight was that the passengers got up, watching the wreck of the Titanic. In the depths of the ocean at a depth of 3,800 meters. Under the sea surface. It was assumed that the flight would take no more than 9 hours. The passengers of the submarine were 5 people. Stockton Rush is the director of the company responsible for the trip. Stockton was the captain of the submarine. The flight was also included. Harding is a British businessman and explorer. So is Shahzada Daud, a British-Pakistani businessman. Together with him was the daughter of Violin Suleiman, and he was a 19-year-old young man. And finally Paul Henry. He was one of the most famous explorers of the deep-sea world. Paul Henry was a submarine commander in the French Navy. He has completed more than 35 missions. Exploratory. At the start of the trip, there were calls continuously every 15 minutes. Between the submarine and the Polar Prince ship. After more than an hour and a half, the connection was interrupted. It was assumed that the round-trip flight time did not exceed 9 hours. More than 12 hours after the disconnection. The submarine was reported to the U.S. Coast Guard. At the time, the submarine was at an inaccessible depth. The company responsible for the submarine said, "The submarine has sufficient oxygen supply. All passengers for about 4 full days. This means that there is enough oxygen for the submarine until Thursday. And after the expiration of 4 days, the oxygen will end." The statement indicated that the submarine had just lost contact. It has not been destroyed. And then the statement. The journey began in a struggle with time. To search for the missing submarine. Actually, it's Titan. It is not considered a submarine in the strict sense. But her real name is a diver. Because the submarine is a much bigger size. And it has very high potential. The weight of the submarine is Titan. It does not exceed 10 tons and a half. It is estimated to withstand weights of up to 700 kilograms. And the speed of Titan does not exceed about 5.5 kilometers per hour. Oddly enough, the cost of the flight ticket per person. It is $250,000. The price includes a full 10-day trip. It included disembarking in the depths of the ocean to discover the wreck of the ill-fated Titanic. After the interruption of communication between the Titan submarine and the polar ship for more than 12 hours, the U.S. Coast Guard has been notified. The process of research crosses was global in the strict sense. Where he participated. A fleet of Canadian, American, and French Coast Guards. Also, some private companies participated in the search process. Where he reached the search equipment. 10 ships, 2 submarines, and a group of aircraft. All equipment. She was trying to comb the largest area of the Atlantic Ocean. They started a survey of an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers. And they tried to expand the searches. They even arrived to comb an area of more than 3,600 square kilometers. But in the end, it was all efforts. It ends in failure. There is no trace of the missing submarine. According to official statements. The weather at the time. She was changeable and unstable. The depth of the submarine was difficult to reach. It was the deepest rescue operation. It was done in history. Ollie was 480 meters deep. But the submarine, this time. It was at a depth of 3,800 meters. But there was hope of finding the submarine. A Canadian pilot detected sounds in the North Atlantic region. The researchers waited. These sounds are coming from the submarine. But an American station monitored the U-boats. The sound of an explosion. Although the American station did not report the explosion officially and publicly. But they reached the Coast Guard. This means that the vehicle exploded hours after it was disconnected. On Thursday morning, the U.S. Coast Guard announced about the death of all passengers of the submarine. After the wreck of the submarine was found in the ocean. And there was more than one conclusion. The submarine exploded as a result of the high pressure. It is found in the depths of the ocean. Knowing that the submarine, she has done more than one trip before. There is no doubt that what the passengers of the submarine are feeling is very harsh. Imagine that 5 individuals are paying huge sums in order to make a trip. But during the flight they are lost in the depths of the ocean. Horror and extreme fear do not exist together with any means of communication. And they have the certainty that their life is almost over. 5 people in a very small space. In the middle of darkness, cold, lack of oxygen. After they were imagining that they were taking a tourist trip. They had a great time and went home. A difficult feeling to describe, imagine, or even feel.